everybody, this is Jolie with the Comic Book Syndicate, and we're here at Gatekeeper Games for our monthly book club, our monthly Detroit Comics Nerdy Book Club. I'm here with Jeff, and I'm here with Pat, and today we're going to talk about Runaways by Brian K. Vaughan. So, gentlemen, what did we think of the book? We're going to start with Pat.
I really enjoyed it. I appreciate Brian K. Vaughan's approach with dialogue. I know that's an acquired taste, but one that I have acquired. And I really liked the approach to the story where they're sort of just superheroes by circumstance and not on purpose, which is something I really enjoyed.
And Jeff?
So I like that idea. I like the premise of the book. And there's lots of things about the book that I would like. I think that the way it was actually made, the way it actually ended up, did little for me. And so I was, at the end of the day, sort of lukewarm about the book. I wanted to like it, but I liked it less than I could have if it had been done better.
Mm-hmm. So like a big criticism about the book that some people in the group had was that a lot of the characters were very like one note and they all had the same quote unquote like voice. Can you sort of explain that more? I guess we'll ask Jeff.
Since I'm the critical voice.
The critical voice.
I think that's maybe a product of having a fairly small book devoted to 6 characters and 12 villains, all of whom get roughly same amount of play. Like I don't find whether they had the same voice, which is probably true. Like I just found that none of them was particularly compelling. None of them was a character that I latched onto or felt particularly well developed. I didn't know what their motivations were other than like getting away.
And from someone else's perspective who disagrees with that point, that there are fun characters that you can be entertained by and kind of fall in love with, like what do you have to say to that point?
I think to the point that they maybe sound the same, I think the criticism is fair, but I think there's enough distinct about each of them that I think for me it's fairly easy to tell them apart, and I think each of them have very specific characteristics that I enjoy and relate to. And I think a lot of people really didn't like how the dialogue sort of dated the book, which again is a fair criticism, but I think somewhat unfair because the nature of the genre, especially superhero comic books, it's sort of inevitable that these characters can get dated in that way. And I think I also appreciated how the specifics in all of these references sort of locate the story in a specific time and place, which I think is something good.
But I think that, to me, the sort of problem that initiated was that they, like, in the books, the parents are aware of the kids knowing about them so soon that it becomes like that conflict is dragged out into the open, like, right away. And so the running away, it doesn't, like, they run away and then very quickly they are, like, sort of found out and flushed out of their secret lair. So it doesn't really do much for the book. Like the idea, again, of them running away, super cool. The actual development inside the book, not that great. Like I think one thing about the TV show is that there's a lot more time given to them knowing about what's happening, but the parents not knowing that they know, and so they have to actually sort of plot and work things out behind the scenes. Whereas in the book, it's just like they know, and then it immediately becomes the center of the conflict.
Patrick, what do you? It's so strange because thinking about that point, it's like the parents don't know that they know for a very long time. But I feel like in the comic book, like you hear a noise behind two-way glass and you're in the middle of sacrificing a virgin. Who could it be?
Yeah, right.
Like who else would it be? It would be the kids. I feel like a large part of our qualm with the book was that it's a really good idea, but it was poorly executed. But you were one of the people who was like, no, I don't think so at all. Could you talk more about other things that you feel were well executed in the book that other people didn't?
Well, for me, one of the things that really set this book apart from, because the whole genre of the teenage superhero has been around for a long time, and what made this one particularly unique to me is you have a bunch of characters that are not in this story to be superheroes. Like, that's not their raison d'etre, that's not their motivation, that's not the reason for why they do things. And I think that's something that Brian K. Vaughan did, and as far as I know, at least in this particular superhero genre, this isn't really the kind of thing that you do with quote-unquote teenage heroes. And I thought that was very fresh and interesting.
But is it? I'm not sure I can buy that, because they say very quickly, our parents are evil, so therefore we have to be good in order to compensate for what they've done. I think that is very much like part of their motivation. Like, we have to be heroic. I don't know. I think that's where the book really falls short for me, is that any sense of realistic motivation. And I know it's a comic book, but I still want the characters to feel real. I want them to have realistic motivation.
I think that that's not really like. I feel like their decision to do that isn't so much like an aspirational thing. Like, it's sort of a reaction and a rebellion against their parents, as opposed to, say, other characters like the Teen Titans, for example, where the whole point is to become like, these older characters that they're emulating or trying to live up to.
Okay, so without the obvious response of who you would recommend this to, if you would recommend it to anybody, who would you recommend this to? This book. Not anyone that watches the TV show, apparently.
No, I mean, maybe to people who like the TV show. I think it would be, in my mind, having gone from TV show to comic, I was disappointed. I think the TV show takes that same premise and does it better. Like a small thing. For one, it doesn't make the parents ridiculous. I think the parents are totally silly in the comic book, and they're not silly in the TV show. Plus, they have more complex character development, but also like little things like what's her name, Gert, the dinosaur. Like, instead of it just being like, the dinosaur was bioengineered to listen to you, it seems like in the TV show a power. But it seems like it's like taking the same idea and making it just a little bit better. So I think I would recommend it to those people if they were like really interested in the show and were like wanted to see where it came from. But I think it would be, in my mind, disappointing. I think that people who like that premise of like an alternate type of superhero comic where it really is different, like the idea of Runaways is a cool idea. I think probably I'd recommend it to teenagers.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I think it would be especially of interest to young readers, people who would want to break into comic books, because I think Brian K. Vaughan sets the story in a very isolated space in this bigger universe, and so you don't really need a lot of specialized knowledge to immediately engage with the story. And I think if you're somebody who sort of grew up and are into sort of like Buffy or sort of witty, sci-fi banter like Killjoys now, like this is something you would enjoy.
Or like Chris Claremont, X-Men, the kind of...
Like a good ensemble book.
People who like good WB style teen drama, if you like Riverdale, who doesn't? If you like Dawson's Creek.
There's a lot of angst. So if you like angsty teen drama.
Great. So if you want to let everyone else know who you would recommend this book to, then sound off below in the comments. Or maybe you think that we're just a bunch of hipsters who only review contemporary comics. You can also talk about that too. Just leave me a message at Jolie Amy right down there.
That, I don't know why that seems important to me, but and I don't even know where I'm going with this point,